This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West. We got another question here tonight. Got a couple questions. One's from Jason Steg, who's asking the question about squatting into foam. He basically goes on to say that when he squats on the foam, he notices he's actually stronger rather than weaker. Well, it all depends on the type of foam that you have. If you have a very stiff, my mouth just whistled. Did you hear that? Kind of weird. It's all going to depend on how dense your foam is. If you have very dense foam, some high density foam, odds are that when you hit into it, you won't sink a whole lot and you'll be able to come back up. And if the foam is super soft, you'll sink way down into it and you should have a tough time coming back out. But to find that kind of foam is kind of tough. It's kind of a bitch, really, to find that type of foam. The other reason why it's easier is because the foam helps to dissipate some of the eccentric loading that's going on, and also kind of helping propel you back upward in a way. So it's kind of hard to explain or describe, but this is a good way of doing it. You know, if you jumped off a let's say a 10-foot box onto the ground, onto the concrete, how bad would that shit hurt versus dropping down off a 10-foot box into a thing of sand? The sand would help dissipate your fallen body, and it would help dissipate. I got a little bit of a cold. Did you hear that? That's pretty gross. Help dissipate some of that. Your landing wouldn't be transferred right into your body. It'd be transferred into the sand, into the dirt, and it would make for a much softer, easier landing. Make for an easier overall body loading, easier on your muscles, easier on your tendons, easier on your ligaments, just like the foam box squat that you're referring to. So if it is making it easier, then maybe just don't do it. If it's hard to find the right kind of foam, you might want to stack up a bunch of foam and make sure by the time you sink into it that you're below parallel. That might be a good way to do it. That's something we've done at Super Training before with some success. We've gotten away from the foam. We don't really mess with it anymore. We use some foam tops here and there because I like the softer cushion for my buttocks. But that's pretty much it. We got another question here from the guy's asking, how do I program speed pulls? And you know, like how long are the cycles and what type of bands and blah blah. Okay, speed pulls. When you do a speed deadlift, when you do a speed anything, the best thing to do is start with 50% of your best. 50% of what? 50% of what kind of best? 50% of your best, whatever the exercise is. If you do a deadlift, it's a 50% of your deadlift. If you've never done a sumo deadlift before, test it out, see where you're at, take 50% of that, and start from there, and try to move the weights fast. How do you program your speed pulls? It's kind of up to you, man. It's really up to you. I like to do 8 sets of 3, 8 sets of 2, sometimes 10 sets of 1. What I have noticed the most success from is utilizing short rest period, especially on the deadlift, even more so than the squat. For whatever reason, for me, my experience, this is what I've felt has worked best. 10 singles, fucking ripping through them fast, pardon my French, and just minute rest in between sets. Try not to mess around too much in between your sets and get your work done. That's what I've noticed works best for me. I've also liked to do sets of 3 and sets of 2. I'm not very good at repetition work, and I feel my lower back and my body needs the extra work. I feel I need the extra repetition, so if you did 10 sets of 3, that's 30 reps, as opposed to 10 sets of 1, it's only 10 reps. The repetition gets ingrained in this giant thing that I call a head. So that'll help. What type of percentage are you going to use? Is there a cycle? Is there a periodization form of it? Not really, not for me. I just kind of go by how I feel. I like pulling against some chains, so I did 1 week of chains, then I did 1 week of bands and chains, And this next week here, which is tomorrow, I will probably just pull against some chains. I kind of prefer the chains over the bands. Not really sure why. I can't really give you a great answer on why. But I do know that the chains kind of have a certain load to them before they ever even leave the floor. There's some chain already on the bar, and I kind of like that. Whereas the bands, they kind of go from 0 to like being like 200 pounds. And that's kind of a shitty feeling. It's kind of an awkward feeling. But I like the chains better. I also like the fact that chains kind of slow you down. Everyone's always talking about the importance of speed and how great speed training is. And it can be great. It can be wonderful. It can do a lot of great things for you. But moving at these rapid, fast-paced speeds can also be somewhat dangerous and also unrealistic. If you're moving 50% of your max against some bands and you're just flying through it, that may not necessarily transfer over into your contest deadlift or to your real heavy deadlift. So you got to remember, it's mass times acceleration. You're trying to produce as much force as you possibly can, and in order to produce the most force that you possibly can, you may need a little bit more weight. You may need a little bit more chain on there, whatever the case is. In the case of the deadlift, a lot of times you'll see someone's butt will move before the barbell ever does. So their butt will move up, and then the barbell moves. So they do a 2-part lift with lifts over 90%, and they do a 1-piece lift when they do 50% or 60%. How will that transfer over? Not very good, because they're quite different, aren't they? So, again, this is for me, what I like to do with my deadlift. My shitty 760 deadlift. It's not a great deadlift for a top-level powerlifter, so I guess that means I am a top-level powerlifter. I got to keep working. Got to pull at least 800 pounds for it to mean anything. So what I like to do for myself is I like to basically, I'll start off with about half of 800 pounds, which is, someone said it, 400 pounds. Good job. Good work out there. Yay! I'll start with about 400 pounds, and I'll add about 20 pounds, 30 pounds per set until I get the right weight on there that I feel is correct. Sometimes I'll do 2 sets with each weight until I feel like I got to my max. Not max, but until I feel like I got the work in that I wanted to get in for the day. Sometimes I will roll the dice and take a max. You can look at that at supertraining.tv and see what I did last week with Taco Truck. We did a Taco Bell workout where we did everything for 2 sets going up for doubles, and then I did about 3 singles. And tore a callus. You can kind of still see it. Kind of gross. Look how gnarly that hand is. Imagine trying to masturbate with these things. That would be awful. And scary. And I think that's pretty... Oh, how can I use bands without using a lifting platform? That's a tough question to answer without actually physically showing you, so I'll have to do that. I'll have to make a video for supertraining.tv showing you that. But in short, you can just take a band, you can just drape it right over, then you can step your fat little feet on it. Maybe we'll post a picture to this link when we put this up on YouTube, so you can see what we're talking about. You just drape the band right over, and you step your feet on it, and as you pull the weight up, the band is attached to the bar, and the bands are underneath your feet. That makes sense? Hopefully it does. That's it from supertraining.tv.